disable the webinar and stop recording and kick everybody off and stay in the same one rather than setting up another one. But that seems too complicated to do it that way.
I think the way it's been done here has been pretty good, actually.
Yeah, because going the other way, you have to like remember who was on and to let them back in and things like that. And I wanted to reply and say there's an easier way to do it.
Yeah, I saw that and I just said, yeah, I'm not going to read it because it's working as well as we can get it to work. So
yeah.
Okay, we are live on YouTube. The mayor is saying I'm waiting to enter. Should I get to City Hall? I don't see him waiting to enter though.
Michelle, I got a note that he was entering the closed session meeting, so he's.
Oh, okay. Let me tell him that.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning.
Oh.
Hello, Mayor.
Tell him he's trying to get into the closed session. Vince. Vince.
Are you in the closed session or the
There we go.
the regular one?
Closed. He's in the closed.
Yeah. No. I think it's the other one. That's the guy in closed session. All right. Give me a call though if there's, All right. Sounds good. Thanks. Yeah, I just chatting with the mayor. I think he was getting into the one that Ed sent for the closed session. So he's
that's what Ed had said. He got an alert.
Yeah.
I'm going to email it to him.
Yeah, that'd probably be good to.
Just give me 1 second. Okay.
Yeah, I just sent him a text to let him know that you're sending the link to the regular meeting.
Great. He said he got it.
Good.
Now let me get back to you guys. All right. We are live on YouTube and I'm going to go ahead and start the recording, resume the recording of this meeting. So Vince, after everyone leaves this meeting, I'm going to go ahead and put up that slide. So I may be a minute or two late coming into closed session, but I'll be there.
All right, I appreciate it. That's good.
No problem.
Last one in buys breakfast.
Yeah.
I hear that in the form of a motion, right?
Yes. Second.
I see him, so I'm gonna let him in.
All right.
There we go. All right, there he is. Good morning.
Morning all. Morning all. Sorry for the delay here. I think it's about 4 minutes after.
That's all right. We decided you're buying breakfast for everybody.
Okay, do you want delivery? How do you want it?
I second that motion, John.
Just
DoorDash.
please, one location only, not 5 different locations. I'll see what I can manage here. Okay. I know I'm catching up. Are we, Michelle?
We're live, so we're live on YouTube. I resumed the recording. Everybody is in that should be a panelist, so I think we're ready to go.
Okay. Thank you all for your patience. At this time, we'll call the City Council special meeting to order. Clerk, could you please call the roll? Reminder,
Councilperson,
say our locations.
oh, that's right. Councilperson Whitman,
Here, Monroe, Michigan.
Iko Angeli,
President, Monroe, Michigan.
Vining,
Here, Monroe, Michigan.
Germaine,
Here, Monroe, Michigan.
Lamore,
Present, City of Monroe.
Felder,
Present, Monroe, Michigan.
Mayor Clark,
President, City of Monroe.
and Clerk Lavoy, City of Monroe.
Okay, well, we have a couple items on here, and I think unless Mr. Pastor, you have any opening, we're looking for some council motion.
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Very good.
Your Honor,
Yes, Councilman Felder.
I would motion that we move into closed executive session for the purposes of land acquisition, review of attorney-client privilege correspondence, and labor negotiations.
Or second.
Motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilman Ecolangi to go into closed executive session for the reasons stated. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Whitman,
Yes.
Iko Angeli,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Germaine,
Yes.
Lamore,
Yes.
Felder,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes, and I have that Zoom link already.
Yes.
Okay.
Session, fine.
You got it, Paula?
Nope.
So just, you just end this or leave this meeting and then go to Ed's email. Because you have to leave this one first. You should leave this one first.
Okay, I can see this.
Do you,
I'm
can you see leave?
Yes.
Okay, so if you leave the meeting and then go to your emails and get Ed's email for the invite to the closed session, click on that link, okay? Mark, you should be all set.
I'll just let you know, some reason a little challenge here with the my screen, my laptop. So hopefully things will continue.
We can hear you. You're back to normal volume anyway.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome. And just so I'm sure you can see it, but we just have the one guest. So I'll watch for hands. We don't have a public comment, but I'll watch for hands should anyone raise their hand.
I appreciate that. Thanks. And hopefully this one will show better than the last one.
Okay. So whenever you're ready, I'm ready.
One moment, please.
No problem.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that we go back into regular session.
Second.
Thank you. A motion by Councilman Michelangelo, supported by Councilman Moore, to go back into open session for the special meeting. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Whitman,
Here.
Echoangeli,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Jermaine,
Yes.
Lamore,
Yes.
Felder,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Pastu.
Thank you, Your Honor. Going to have Mr. Cochran give council an update regarding Lazy Boy site redevelopment. A lot going on, a lot more to do, but it's probably important to give you a kind of a time frame where some of this is all going to start coming together. So, Mark.
Thanks, Vince. Good morning, Mayor, Council. So as Vince mentioned, there's still a lot going on and a lot of activity related to the redevelopment of the Lazy Boy site. So I've kind of broken down my presentation into two different categories, and it's a lot of information. I'm going to try and be as direct with it and succinct as I possibly can. But I would say, by all means, if you have questions as I'm going through it, please stop me so that I don't miss anything. But first, I'll share my screen and for the purpose of our discussion today, I figured, can you still see that?
We did for a second, but I think
I see the ocean.
Yeah.
There it is.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thanks. Trying to adjust to having a few different screens here. So for the purpose of today's discussion, I just wanted to show the one alternative that was developed in the sub-area plan just for familiarity and orientation purposes, not necessarily showing any actual design that we've gone through. But there's currently 4 different areas that are being discussed for development. I don't want to go too far into who they are or who the possible tenants may be, but just so that you know the areas that we're in discussion about implementing as we go through sort of the next phase of my presentation, which are the tasks that we're trying to accomplish, it might make a little more sense to you. So first, can you see my pointer? Okay. The first area that we've been working very hard on, as you may know, is the residential development area. We've got a developer that we're working with that is proposing to build single-story townhouse rental units, new construction, obviously, in this area, which is the area east of Huber Drive. And I'll show you a little bit more here in a minute about the site design layout that we've developed so far and come to an agreement on. But it does include this area here, as well as the frontage along Huber Drive that's designed and was intended to be residential as well. The second area that we're working actively with the Great Lakes Opportunity Fund and Joe Daly on is, I call it the Southwest Quadrant, which is this entire area right here. It's not, again, it's not the exact layout of the buildings and the site as we see here, but it is this entire corner for several different commercial tenants that would be new construction buildings. So I don't want to go too much further or say much more than that, just because the ink certainly isn't dry. But there's some commercial activity here. The next property is the former Little Dixie site. The developer is in discussions with another commercial tenant on this site. You'll recall that's not a property that the city owns or acquired, but it is part of the overall redevelopment and part of the brownfield plan that the Brownfield Authority and City Council amended. I think it was back in July. So the building was demolished. There was some environmental work that needed to be done by the developer. And I'm sure many of you have driven by and seen that that site is clear now. And so they're in discussions again with another commercial tenant for this site. The fourth area that is under active discussion for redevelopment are the two parcels that are that the city owns, but that are under the jurisdiction of Frenchtown Township north of Greenfield. It's this little parcel here as well as this little parcel here. One commercial tenant is in, has some interest in redeveloping that site. So we've been working with both the developer and the possible commercial tenant related to those sites. So that gives you an idea of sort of the four different development activities that we're working on, and I'll pause to see if anybody has any questions.
Mark, just for I think council's aware, but just to review, that site that you just talked about up on Greenfield, the city owns, but it's still within Frenchtown, correct?
Correct. It wasn't part of the 425 conditional jurisdictional transfer that we had negotiated with Frenchtown on the rear parcel here.
Okay. See if there's questions from council. John.
Thanks, Your Honor. Mark, without getting into detail, is there any anticipation that any of these projects would start construction in this construction season?
All four of them. Yeah, we're working with all four of them so that construction, particularly for the residential, can begin as early in spring as possible, that the construction season starts up, and then the other ones would like to start construction sometime this summer, if not sooner.
Thank you.
Very good. Brian, see your hand.
Thank you, Your Honor. I noticed we have a roundabout in there. I'm not against it. Just curious, was that something that was staying or going?
Yeah, and I guess that's one item that I left out. I can switch over to the residential design that we've all come to an agreement on, working with both the residential developer, Great Lakes Opportunity Fund, and Joe Daly in the city, working, of course, with the steering committee that the city had established on what the residential layout would be. There's still the construction design engineering is going to be the next phase, which I'll get into here in a minute, but this is what the rear portion is envisioned right now. To your point, Councilman, the roundabout was taken out with consultation and advice from the steering committee, as well as the comfort level of the developer to have a four-way intersection, four-way stop intersection at that location. Of course, landscaped and improved, not just a typical four-way intersection, and those improvements would be part of the next phase of engineering design. So sort of going through the residential development, it does still call for sort of the horseshoe road network, as well as a bisecting residential street in the middle that you'll see my cursor is pointing to, as well as 3 units on the west side of Huber Drive that are all 6-unit apartment buildings. One thing I did want to call out is the detention pond that we've been working through. This is not set in gospel. Again, this is just a site layout that we've been working off of. What the actual size needs to be is still sort of to be determined, working with the drain commissioner and our friends at MKSK and Manikin Smith Group to see what the actual size and location. This is the location, but you'll see there's a unit of buildings that are in a dotted line here. We did have some further discussion after this design was completed. This will not be a 6-unit building. It will likely be either 3 or 4, depending on the shape and size of the detention pond, but also because we wanted to leave green space and open space to soften the aesthetics and visual appeal at this corner as well, and not have just the building straight up to the property line on Huber Drive. So this is still subject to change a little bit. You'll notice the detention pond also has the sidewalks and the trails around Mason Run and the detention pond. We had some discussion this week about what that detention pond would look like. There's the expectation that it will be wet. So more of a pond feature all year long, not just when there's a heavy rain event where water is being detained or sent into the pond and then detained. So it would be a very visual, aesthetic, and appealing amenity to the site, not just for utility purposes.
Okay, I'll see if there's other questions for Mark on this. Okay.
I think Councilman Felder has his hand up.
Oh, okay, Andrew, please go.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You had spoke about the residential properties that were proposed by the developer to be put in. Does that match the missing middle that we had sort of targeted for this? Yeah, you're shaking your head.
Yep. So part of what we used to attract the residential developer, obviously this isn't an opportunity zone, but we had also in 2017 done the retail and residential housing analysis, market analysis for the city that was updated with the sub-area plan, showing the gap and the need to fill with more missing middle. And that's, you're right, that's what this is designed to assist with, and that we feel, as well as the developer feels, the market will support.
Andrew?
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Any others? Any others? Okay, now I see none. Mark, go ahead.
So the next phase that I just wanted to update City Council on is sort of the work that's been going on and what we need to do, what the next steps are for redevelopment of the site. So there's really about 6 different activities that we're working on. First is the PUD standards and the PUD agreement that we've been working with MKSK and the steering committee on. We do have the final PUD standards book completed that now we're moving into the phase of negotiating the PUD agreement with the developer. I know we've received some draft language from MKSK that Matt Budds is now working in to a final agreement that would come before the City Council for approval. So we're continuing to work through that process, and certainly had some great feedback from the steering committee, and really see no issues with the developer so far either on what those design standards are. One thing I wanted to note, I mentioned that we're working on the redevelopment of the 2 parcels that are in Frenchtown Township that are technically under their zoning jurisdiction. One of the things that I've been very clear with on that commercial tenant is whatever site plan that they end up developing, and they've sent a couple back and forth, is that sort of as a condition of conveyance for the city to agree to sell that property or convey it to the developers, that it's going to have to adhere to our PUD standards. So while technically it falls under Frenchtown's jurisdiction and they're going to have to be held to their zoning requirements, we are going to expect them as well to continue with development of that site in the spirit and intent of the sub-area plan and the PUD standards that the city has developed. And they've been agreeable to that, and they've actually, we've had some great dialogue with suggestions that the city has provided back that they've continued to meet. So that's going well.
Good. Any thoughts, questions for Mark on that part? Appreciate that update, Mark, on the with the developer on the continuation with the PUD plan.
So the next phase, or the next task that we're working primarily myself, Matt Budds, and Vince on, is the actual parcel conveyance. So when the city intends to convey any of these parcels over over to the developer to begin construction on any component of the development. We're working on what that agreement is going to look like. We also have to define what the parcels are. And that will be really contingent upon who the user is and what their site layout is. So for example, with the residential, it'll probably end up being 2 or 3 parcels because of the commercial rehab district that the city council approved on the west side of Huber. So we're working to define what those may be, and then also, of course, with the development agreement that we have, what consideration needs to be provided to the city before we actually convey those over. So that's another component that we're currently working on, and items that will be coming before city council in the near future.
Thank you.
The next update is we are working with Manikin Smith and MKSK on the next phase of infrastructure development. So as you know, the first phase included the reconstruction of Holiday Drive east of Telegraph Road. You'll see that Salem Bean did install that before the hard winter hit. There's still some work to be completed, meaning the right turn lane into the site coming from the south that is required to be installed. We've run into some problems with MDOT in terms of getting that permit issued for the new signal. Part of the design includes replacing the overhead traffic signals. Instead of having them hang from a wire, but have the mast arms similar to what is at Elm and North Monroe Street. That probably will be delayed until later this summer. We finally got the okay from MDOT, and that has gone out to bid. Patrick and the engineering department put that work out to bid, I think 2 weeks ago. But we do understand that there's quite a lead time on those mast arms, possibly September into October. So that'll be a challenge that we continue to work through, of course. Installing that right turn lane and that signal is going to be important for the commercial and the residential development to proceed. So that'll be an issue that we continue to work through with the right turn lane. But in terms of what the phase 2 infrastructure design proposal is going to end up looking like, Manikin Smith is going to be submitting a proposal that's sort of 2-part, public infrastructure and private infrastructure. The public infrastructure is going to be extending Holiday Drive back to Huber. So completing that first phase, and then also extending Huber Drive at least up until the Mason Run drain to accommodate the residential development. That public infrastructure is also going to include the Mason Run drain design. So we've been working through this with the steering committee on what the drain is going to ultimately look like with the public open space around it, the landscaping, what sort of amenities that's going to look like, and MKSK has been working on that. We had a call with them taking the lead with Manikin Smith, myself, and Patrick, and the drain commissioner last week on that. And that work is going to be continuing ahead. Another piece of the infrastructure that we're working on is that stormwater detention. So a lot of detail working through with the drain commissioner on how much detention we need for the entire site, not just that area serving the residential. This is ultimately going to end up being a partly public and partly private. So while the city, we desire to have it look more like a site amenity than just utility, as I mentioned before, with the landscaping around the edges, the trails around the sides. The public part of it is going to be actually designing the drain, and then it will be the responsibility of the private developer to install it primarily, as well as long-term maintenance. That wouldn't be something that the city is on the hook for in the long term. And the residential developer has been open and agreeable to that. But the private part of the infrastructure is going to be the roadways within the residential development, as well as the water and sewer service. So the private developer is going to be responsible for that component. So when we get the proposal from Manikin Smith in the next week, it'll be broken out with those 2 costs. But actually, we do believe that we've got funds enough from previous contracts with Manikin Smith to cover the public infrastructure installation or design component of that proposal. So I'll take a breath. If there's any comments on the phase 2 infrastructure update.
Comments from council on phase 2 of the former Lazy Boy site. I don't see any hands going up. Andrew, I see.
Perhaps a clarifying point. We did talk about how Huber Drive continues into Holiday through. Bentley would still be a dead end. Is that my understanding?
Yep, that's correct.
And it would sort of
And-
hit that parking lot anyway.
Yeah. And the intent still is to take Huber Drive all the way to Greenfield out to Stewart Road, but that's not necessarily included in this first phase because it's not necessary for any of the development so far.
Well, I'm sure there's engineers who are working on this that are much smarter than I. We just need to make sure that we don't run into an issue where we're creating a situation where we have almost a cut through on a residential street that goes into a commercial area, similar to the issue that we're dealing with on the other side of town at Kroger.
Yeah, and that's the importance of the intersection design at Holiday and Huber. While the purpose of the roundabout intentionally was to have it as a traffic calming and make it so it's not just a cut through to Stewart Road, but the actual design of that intersection and the rest of the road network is going to be with that primarily in mind.
Yeah, but I mean, by and large, I think generally you want them opened up as much as possible. I think the residents who live in the backsides of those neighborhoods would really appreciate that for snow removal priority as much as anything else. So.
Yeah, we definitely don't want people using Huber Drive as an alternative to Telegraph.
Yeah.
John. You're muted, sir.
Thanks. Mark, a question for you. Is the proposed intersection at Huber and Holiday, we were talking at one time that may be a tabletop?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yep.
really an engineered tabletop, not like the ones on North Custer.
Right.
Yeah, and that's still the intent.
Okay.
I guess follow it. That's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up. Because I think it is important as well for the ties to Andrew's comments and the drive-through aspect as well. On the Bentley side, I know that I was trying to think back to the map. We don't have to pull it back up of how that's going to potentially open for non-motorized opportunities through the access to the site. Because I think those residents would be looking for it, and others for that biking, walking. That would be the alternative as well. So is that still the discussion as well?
It's actually a great lead into my next update regarding to some of the work. So the other component of heavy lifting that we've been doing over the past 2 weeks has been the Eagle drain permits, as well as the drain commissioner approval and permits that are going to be needed. So first is the Eagle permit. So whatever we do to the drain, we have to have Eagle approval. And and part of the permit submission that we're going to be including is one vehicular crossing over Mason Run Drain, and that would be the Huber Drive extension to Greenfield, but also 2 pedestrian crossings, one near the eastern portion of the site within the residential development. And I can pull it up if you have questions, but it's included in some of the pedestrian pathway network within the residential design is to have one crossing in the rear east, and then one pedestrian crossing in the area where you're talking, Mayor, up near closer to Telegraph Road within the commercial development and the sidewalks and the pathways. So that's what we're going to be submitting is for the 2 crossings, with all of those to be, or 3 crossings, 1 vehicular and 2 pedestrian.
Thank you. That helps. I know that with logistically putting up the buildings and looking at that in a long-term plan from that side, you wouldn't want people coming off Huber Drive into the back of a blank wall building that they got to work around like it's an alley. I think I know that was discussed. The update is helpful to understand the crossings as well out of the Mason Run. Other questions? Ryan.
Yeah, Mark, just regarding Eagle and the wetlands, how's that discussion, negotiating process going?
Did I send my outline ahead of time? Because that's the next item. So the other thing, we had a meeting with the drain commissioner this week on a variety of different items, including what the design of the drain is going to look like, as well as what the city is going to desire to do within the drain right away on either side, as well as the wetlands. So there is about an acre of wetlands on the eastern portion of the site where the residential is planned to be installed. We have to mitigate those one way or another. And two different opportunities that we have to do that are to buy into the sort of the public wetland bank that are held by private owners. It's more costly to do that. It's about $100,000 to $120,000 per acre that you have to pay. But the drain commissioner, Dave Thompson, is a member of, I'm going to screw this up, but it's the Municipal Wetland Alliance. And the purpose of that group is to build wetlands across the state that municipalities can buy into at a much reduced cost. He brought that opportunity to us that we were very excited about. They are planning to build one in Southwest Monroe County. They're acquiring the property to do it. And so it's our intent to propose to Eagle that we would buy the acre of wetlands, or one or so acre of wetlands, into that municipal bank in Monroe County. Whether Eagle is going to accept that, we've been in discussions. It depends on how close they are to actually completing that. So, I mean, to your point, Councilman, 2 weeks ago, I gave an update on our activity with our lobbyists and legislative activities, and this will be something that we seek his assistance on to come to some sort of amicable agreement with Eagle that keeps the development costs low with that requirement. But the drain commissioner gave us a good update and has been very helpful. I know he was going to reach out to the association this week to get an update on where they're at in constructing the one in Southwest Monroe County, and I haven't heard back yet.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the habitat as well, Mark, trying to reduce some of that?
Yep. So Eagle does offer you a discount on the amount of wetlands that you have to mitigate if you do certain habitat improvements on the site. So as we talk about what the design of Mason Run is going to look like, we've charged MKSK with helping us to build some natural habitat onto that site to meet that requirement to reduce the amount of wetlands that we're required to mitigate.
Ryan, you had a follow-up?
Yeah, just we're talking 100 to 120,000 through the normal bank. What were you thinking as far as the cost through this other way that Dave Thompson was talking about?
The estimate that we've gotten is probably around 30,000.
That's huge.
So it's significant.
Very significant.
Yeah. And we hope Eagle will see the reasonableness in our proposal there.
You know, we're probably getting ahead, but one of the things we've talked about is actually putting some money aside from an escrow standpoint until this is, but it's a negotiation.
Yeah, that'll be part of the proposal that we send that we hope Eagle sees as a good faith effort on our end. The other work that we have to do with the drain commissioner, of course, we've talked about the design of the drain itself, as well as our desire to not just have sort of a grassy, dry drain, but to have landscaping, trails, benches, different amenities around it as called for in the sub-area plan. The drain commissioner has given his blessing, and you know, he thinks overall it's a good idea. He's worried about the drain commission office getting saddled with the maintenance of that. It makes it a little more challenging than I'll say the work that they do maintaining other drains around the county. So there's going to be an expectation that the city signs a maintenance agreement that if we want to make these improvements above and beyond what the drain commissioner normally does or allows within the right of way and the drain itself, that the city would be responsible long-term for the maintenance of those items. That's things like mowing the grass and maintaining trees that are planted, maintaining the trails, and that if they do have to go through and clean it, that any damage that's done they would not be held liable for. Of course, it's our goal and intent to not have to have the drain commissioner maintain that we would do that ourselves. And so we'll be negotiating that agreement. Obviously, that'll come before City Council. It'll be likely that that's an agreement with the city, but it's also something we would look to use the Telegraph Road Corridor Improvement Authority for, with the funds that they have from the tax increment capture, to keep that maintained into the future. So that'll be something that you'll see in the near future as well.
Thanks, Mark. I only smile because I know that Councilman Michelangelo and council has brought this up previously about drain maintenance, and there's ways to get it done. I understand that when it's done drastically, but I appreciate very much the drain commissioners taking a supportive approach to these entities and agreements and partnerships to get it done. So, and I think that's where the maintenance upfront comes. So we are not having to look at something of a drastic type nature. So that's why I smiled. But John, I saw John as well. So but council's talked about this. So I appreciate the work on that and the initiative to get an understanding. I appreciate the drain commissioner's support.
One of the things too we've been working through is the amount of detention that we're going to have on the site for stormwater. When we think of the site, it's really bisected by Huber Drive. So there's what's east of Huber Drive that's never been developed, and there's what's west. We're trying to get a figure for how much we're going to have to detain on both sides, and whether we have what size detention pond we may have to have on the east side of or west side of Huber and on the east side of Huber. Really, when we talk about the size pond that we're going to have within the residential component, we may be able to kind of overbuild that to take on what the rest of the site may end up flowing either into Mason Run or into the detention pond. And they've been very flexible with what the calculations are going to need to be, not requiring us to go above and beyond. And I know Manikin Smith had some conversation this week about what the runoff calculations we're going to have to use, and we've got at least some verbal commitment that it's going to be reduced to what we previously thought it was going to be, which is very much appreciated as well.
Excellent. John.
Yeah, Your Honor, thanks. Mark, is the developer still, I still would suggest that they take a look at underground stormwater storage so they could reuse that water for irrigation.
Yep, we're working with MKSK on that too. When we talk about the Mason Run drain design and the entire stormwater detention, that's going to be a component as well. Okay. It may not have to be as much as we originally thought. There is going to have to be some sort of pond, but the mixture between sort of underground and what can go into Mason Run and what needs to be detained in a pond is what we're still working through.
Okay. Thank you.
Brian.
Yeah, just a recap on that, what Councilman Michelangelo was talking about, the underground detention. My understanding was it was costly to do that, and we wanted to try to do as little of that as possible. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, yep. And that's why we're working through how much is exactly going to have to be done on the commercial side versus the residential side, and using the drain as well.
Well, but on the other hand, if the developer really takes a look at it with the engineer and they do a cost benefit analysis, they'll find that over the years using the stormwater for irrigation means they have to buy less potable water at a higher cost.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah, and we're also looking, how much do we have to really detain? Because the site was previously developed with a lot of concrete and a building across the entire sprawling site. And some of the work that we're doing is actually increasing the amount of green space and non-impervious surfaces as well. So that's sort of the calculations we're seeking clarification on.
I guess another question I have is, since the stormwater is considered infrastructure and is reimbursable as an eligible cost under the brownfield, wouldn't the underground detention also be part of the stormwater infrastructure that's reimbursable under the brownfield as well?
Yep.
Okay.
Very good.
Who knows? You could end up with a LEED certified business commercial area.
These are great points. I had the discussion here for the council, but also for the for this meeting, for the public gets an understanding of what it takes on a development project. And we've been through a few of these already, but these new opportunities, ideas, and partnerships, I think, is what's going to make the site stand out from many of the past. And I appreciate the work being done by the administration, the committee, and of course, in partnership with our developer, as well as the grant commissioners, others that have mentioned. So that's great.
I guess to that point, Mayor, just one more clarifying point for the public and those who aren't a member of the steering committee. One of the challenges that we do have with stormwater detention on the site, and why we look at it west of Huber and why we look at it east of Huber, is there's a fiber line that's owned by Buckeye that kind of runs down where Huber Drive is going to be extended to the drain and eventually to Greenfield. It's very costly to relocate that or move it in order to accommodate stormwater lines running, I guess, across Huber and onto the other side of the site. And rather than try and relocate that or look at other costly options to try and avoid it, that's why we're looking at probably two different stormwater management systems for the two sections of the site. So the other update I already talked about, which is the Telegraph Road turn lane and the signal improvement, just sort of setting expectations. That's out to bid, but it's probably going to be at least through the summer and into early fall that we're working on that. And finally, we are still going after state support for the brownfield plan as well. So now that we've got some of what we were waiting on really was the investment figures, how much in investment dollars we're going to have with the residential, how much investment we're going to have with the commercial, makes it all the more attractive for the state to support your brownfield plan and to contribute the state school tax capture. So we are working with AKT Peerless to finally put that package together now that we have some of those figures and have more of a concrete idea of what's going in with regard to the mixture of commercial and residential. And so we're working on it's called a 381 work plan that we'll submit to the state. And again, that's something that we're going to be engaging our lobbying firm on as we make that pitch and make that official ask to the state and the MEDC. So it's another piece we're working on. And with that, those are all the updates and the pieces that I have, unless Vince or Matt have anything to add, or if there's any other questions.
Thanks, Mark. That's a lot of information. Appreciate the update. It's really good to hear the progress and to let the public know as well. Vince or Matt, any updates from your position on this?
No, I think Mark covered a lot of it, other than part of the reason why I'm glad we did this morning, because there's a lot of pieces that are going to be flying toward the council in different directions at different times. And part of it is just, as this happens, if you have questions, feel free to call and ask, because it is complicated. It's going to come at a pretty quick pace, a lot of this. And so I just think it's important to be comfortable, give you this foundation, but we anticipate over the next three or so months, there's going to be a lot of these pieces that are coming before city council. And so again, it's a lot of information this morning, but don't hesitate to give either Mark or myself a call if you have questions and need further clarification.
I'll say we did develop a task schedule as well, sort of revisiting for each of these items that I just reviewed. There's a lot of minute details that have to be tackled by various people who are working on this project. Engineering's been very helpful, obviously. MKSK, Manikin Smith, the developer, myself, Vince, Matt, City Council, the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority are all playing a role into this. And so it's a pretty fast and heavy timeline, and all taking place this year in this construction season. And I'll say, who knows what other commercial development may pop up on the rest of the site that we may have to sort of shift gears and pay attention to too. So it's very fluid, but all a lot of good progress that's been made over the past couple months, and a lot that's to come. So,
the other part of it is, Mark mentions the fluidity of this as well, is that as these things come together in the context of the development agreement, the parcel transactions, we're going to end up sizing whatever brownfield bond that we may end up using. If you recall, we had the authorization to do that earlier. And so so there's going to be some pieces out there as well. So it'll come pretty quick, over the next few months. So, but I just appreciate you giving us this morning to kind of walk through some of that.
That was exhausting just to go through. I might take the rest of the day off now.
You do that.
Thanks.
I have to laugh when the list that Mark was working on with everyone, he gave it to me and I said, that's it. We can't do that. There's just too many things too fast. It can't happen, but it will happen. It's just, but there's a lot there and a lot of detail in this. And he's just hitting the high level of it, all the detailed tasks underneath and the assignments and responsibilities. So at any rate, I don't have anything more else to add to that, Your Honor.
If there's nothing else from council on this, I know you have one more item here within our session, and we're about 20 minutes to our 2 hours. We'll see where we get, how far, and see if we need to get an extension from the council members to continue. But I know this is an important topic as well as we continue to make transitions here within the city.
Again, let me, as an introduction, Your Honor, one of your council 2021 goals was to develop succession plans for departments, particularly those that we know where the department had maybe within a few years of retirement. One of the things that we had an initial discussion with Parks and Rec, and again, Loretta's on the line. I've had some discussion with her as well. But part of it is before you proceed with the plan, let's kind of pull back and say, are we comfortable with the direction and the trends? And so, part of the discussion that we had was, the way the current trends in society is that there is less and less involvement, if you will, from an organized recreational programming standpoint. It's lessened over the years, and that there's more interest in individual or small groups self-organizing some of their events and recognizing the context that we do a lot of recreational programming and special events that, how that would look going forward with that. And so we thought it was at a point where it's time to have a discussion. I list the three primary factors. Again, less interest in organized recreational activities. The concept, Councilman Michelangeli, used the Disney, kind of look at your city as the entire city as a park, focus on the maintenance details. And then, part of it is, I think, a recognition with special events is that we probably need to broaden some of the engagement, not necessarily have it all organized, but develop, a consistent, coherent, strategic plan, if you will, for some of our events with that. And so, one of the things we're going to start talking about was, how you go about, putting more emphasis into the maintenance and the special events. And so I sent a memo out late yesterday, kind of outlining some of this and whether we need to start considering phasing out some of our recreational activities that we program for and move some of our resources into the higher end of the maintenance and special events. I will tell you, part of my conversation with Loretta, I thought was very good in the sense that, maybe it's difficult to phase out. And it's also going to be unpopular to have the discussion. That's not the, also want to make that very clear that there isn't any plan. This is just a discussion item. But, as she said, is that, maybe we do focus some of our, limit the number of teams that we have with some of our adult and youth ball fields and put them in, try and focus it exclusively onto Munson Park. And the rationale is that, we do have some programs over at Riverside Park that we have with youth programs, but that would allow for our maintenance, parks maintenance staff to maybe even enhance some of the maintenance at Munson, but also free them up to do some of the other details, enhanced details of maintenance with our other park facilities. And then the other part of it is how we can, by doing some of that is how we may be able to redeploy our recreation programmer to do more and more special events. And so some of it is just, looking at the programs that we offer and I guess in many ways is what's the highest and best use of our personnel that we can to achieve the enhanced maintenance that was discussed, as well as increasing program participation for special events. And so very broad. I don't know if any of the personnel committee want to expand upon that, but I just kind of wanted to start the dialogue with that.
Thanks, Vince. I think that we'll see. John's got his hand up and we'll go from there. But also, I know that our Director of Parks and Recreation, Loretta, will appoint on the meeting as well. If there's some things that she might have, or we have questions for her as well. Really trying to take this opportunity to see where we're going to go with our Parks and Recreation, our commission that's kind of on a standstill, how we have to redevelop that. I'm just kind of looking for an administrative side. We'll talk about the parks then. And really our commitment and our objective with the Trails Committee and getting that kicked off as well, and how that ties into our recreation. And since making multiple committees or boards, how do we really restructure overall? And that's really where we're starting at. John, if you would.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I liked Loretta's suggestion about consolidating like all of the youth and adult ball teams over at Munson. I think it makes sense, especially if you have parents that have kids that are playing in two different types of ball, where they got to transport some over to Riverside and then some over to Munson. It would be, I think, logistically better to have all of those facilities at one park, where our maintenance people could, maintain all the fields at one time. I think the master plan that we commissioned about 5 years ago for the 5 parks, the one at Munson Park, I think the master plan did call for developing a couple of youth ball diamonds on the park in order to kind of, it fits in with what Loretta was suggesting. And then that way we wouldn't have to maintain the facilities over at Riverside Manor. I think the other part that we talked about in the personnel committee was kind of the idea that the mayor was saying is maybe starting to take a more aggressive or more a broad view of parks and recreation as a kind of a main component for the city itself in terms of its overall maintenance. Urban forestry, for example, gardening, keeping up some of the facilities we have, putting more of a centralized focus on it, and start positioning ourselves as a national park community. That's was some of the discussion that we had.
Let's see if there's some other thoughts. I have some additional I want to hear from council. Michelle, go ahead. Councilman Girini.
I think we need to revisit and reallocate the personnel that we have and their role and responsibility to the city. And I agree with John with the and Loretta's idea. I think it's a great idea. That way we can redefine the roles and the responsibilities of the people that work in our city.
Okay, thanks. I want to kind of go further here with this as well. I think we've talked about how we're transitioning, and some of our recreational activities are taken on by I'll say organizations such as Mesa as an example. I think it's a great example of how it can be. But looking broad from one portion of the one end for our city to the other, how we can develop this plan to meet the needs throughout, but where we position and reallocate, I think, is important. So this week, since we the streets and sidewalk and trail village was passed with those necessary improvements, SEMCOG was alert as always, and I wanted to talk about what that meant, because we as we know, we've talked about the county loop plan, which was supported by SEMCOG and supported by the city. The bike ped plan coming from South County of Ohio north. And then of course, north of us, the extension of the bike path along Jefferson and Frenchtown. So they wanted to get information of where the city council was at. So I kind of gave them an overview of how we envision that along these lines. Of we will have users that will come and will simply coming through the city but we also have to make amenities and opportunities for the stops here within the city. And then we have our residents who are going to be more casual users. They're not going to be the bike group that wants to pedal quickly somewhere or have a destination. So we have to accommodate both of those within our internal trails. And I think that's included in this as well. They're we're very interested, very supportive. The last SEMCOG executive committee meeting, there was a video that was presented, which I'm going to send. It's on the SEMCOG's website, but I'm going to send it to council here following today's meeting to give you an idea of what a PED plan looks like and how you can accommodate that through. When they can start in Detroit, cross 8 Mile and go through 3 different jurisdictions and a whole variety of roadways, you can see how it can be done, and we can do that as well here. That's one of the items the council's put forward when we talk about that comprehensive look of recreation, is both our activities at Munson Park, how do we consolidate, reallocate with that is the discussion, but also how do we accommodate these others so we make our community connective in every possible way as people traverse through, but also our residents traverse through as well. So that was a good conversation. They're supportive, and I think there's opportunities also there for some supporting revenues, whether it be through the planning phase or evaluation or even expenditure. So just want to bring that up, some other activities going on, recognizing what we're doing in discussion on recreation. Brian.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just some thoughts. I know I saw the piece regarding Mesa. Obviously, that would bring more of a privatization organization into the realm of the city. I have no problems with that. But similar to how we're doing the ordinances for the city, is there some kind of language we need to present to people before they start an organization similar to that? So maybe something we want to formulate.
And that's a great question. I think Vince got his hand up, and there might be Matt Budd's question as well, but we want to make sure that we're all on the same page as we move those forward. So that's going to be something we need to discuss and draft of, here's how we're going to make this a partnership and how it can get done. Vince, thought?
It is a pretty significant undertaking, and I do think that again, I throw that out there as a general comment, but if there's interest in it, we can put together an outline and a framework of what an organization has to look like. I mean, you got to have a set of bylaws and a procedure, and I'm not sure it would, it'd take even a period of time if you were to organize as a nonprofit to get your IRS certification, but clearly, I mean, the language would have to address any kind of responsibilities that they would have related to the programming end of it. We would have responsibilities regarding the maintenance of it, the liability issues. You think of something with sports activities like weather related. Okay, the weather horn goes off. Okay, you have to get off there. And so there's got to be some of that monitoring as well. So I threw this out there in the general sense to see what interest there may be. But, and even Loretta and I were saying, look, this it's not an easy proposition to just turn this over, but we could put together an outline of what what an organization would have to look like, and maybe an outline as to what the duties and responsibilities we would anticipate if we were to go in that route. Matt, you want to add anything with it that?
The only thing I'll say is, there's a lot of ways to kind of structure that all the way along a spectrum, right? From the idea of, here's the ground. I mean, I'll say, right, I mean, soccer fields, they'll be rented from this period of time to this period of time, and here's the rules that we expect, and you will be organized as a, appropriate entity and those sorts of things. So I think there's a lot of ways to structure that. You see that across different sports and different ways of doing it. And I'll just say, Vince is probably smiling because he knows on the personal side, I have some involvement in an organization that my son's involved in, not here in the city, but essentially kids sports can be structured all the way from the municipality runs everything to the municipality is just renting you the ability to use their facility, and here's the rules and restrictions that you'll follow while you do that. And I think it's just a matter of sitting down and talking about how we want to structure that for the various different parts of, I'll say, our recreational opportunities.
And as I smile, it also includes both Matt and I've probably seen the good and bad of that too.
I'll see if there's other council members for other input. Just I'll need to see your visual hand because I'm still not catching the blue hands. John, and then I'll have a follow up too. Go ahead, Councilman Clancy.
Yeah, a couple things. Thanks, Your Honor. One, I guess on the organization, because I'm involved with it on my daughter's travel volleyball team. My suggestion is don't make it so onerous that people are going to say there's too many requirements. I mean, we have to protect our interest in terms of liability and hold harmless. But I really think that once the parents get involved, they tend to put a structure together themselves and how they're going to run things. So to me, it's kind of like this is an opportunity where government doesn't really need to insert itself all that much in that. And I see the attorney shaking his head yes. So that's my one comment. The other part of the memorandum that I think we need to talk about, I think one thing that COVID-19 did around the country is based on when people talk about it is people took for granted the opportunity to congregate together. And I think the ability to have organized special events in the community will bring us together as a community. And I think the city really needs to serve as the hub of that. I like some of the ideas Vince had in the memo. Like, for example, this community does not have a community events calendar. And like he pointed out, different organizations were providing different events at the same time, which was, dividing different groups up. So if you wanted to go to the jazz festival, then you had to make a decision. Do I also want to go to the art fair? Do I want to go to Thursday night jazz at one of the local pubs, or do I want to go over to St. Mary's with my family and watch a movie? So I think there's some validity for the city as part of its, if we restructure Parks and Rec, to also include in a special events in there. And I think we could, from a community's point of view, I think we could do a pretty good job. I could see the special events also being coordinated with the national park, because Scott and his crew put on a lot of events over there, and we all, based on our tour, see where once that facility's done, they're going to have more. And it would really be nice if we had one location where people from outside the city could go and take a look at what's going on in the greater Monroe area and in the city. So I think we don't need to we shouldn't lose sight of that. I think special events in the future is going to be a big component of community building.
Thank you, Councilman. I think and I'll get to Brian's next comment. That's within this, and I agree completely. We talked about you talked about the organizations and crafting, and they'll manage their structure. We need to make the environment and make the site available and as accommodating for those activities to occur. And when you get to special events and those, that is the same way we should be taking this. How do we make it, and how do we help put a structure in place that coordinates that? So then you will have the destination, you will have people coming, they'll know what time, what days are coming for, and there's not conflicts of those decisions. I agree completely with that. And I appreciate that being in there. I think that speaking with city manager, I think our Director Lapoint has some thoughts on that as well. Brian, you had your hand up, and then I'll see if there's others after that.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Yes, I agree. I think we're all on the same page here. I think what I'm suggesting is that we create a framework in which an organization can flourish off of, not something that it has to dread and go into. Also, another reminder, we're coming up on 2 hours here. So,
oh, thank you. Yeah, in fact, we're at 2 hours. So I think we have still yet a few more opportunities for comments and moving forward. So we need to, I guess we need to, looking at the clerk, I guess it's a motion and support.
But don't we usually just agree to continue?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Matt has an objection.
I see thumbs up. I see nods, yes. So there's no objection to continuing as we continue our special council meeting here. So we'll continue on. Thank you. Brian, please go ahead further.
That was my only comment. I just want to make sure that we're all on that same page, that we're not trying to limit an organization. We're trying to make it flourish and make it successful versus something that's going to fail. So I think we're all in agreement on that. And I think it's just building that framework and making sure that it's going to enable and not disable an organization.
Okay. I'll see if there's other follow-up comments from council on this, or from the course memorandum that was sent, but also discussion, or if there's any questions for administration or staff. John, Councilman Clancy, go ahead.
Mayor, I was just going to ask, I noticed Loretta's here, if she has any comments regarding the memo.
Sure, I think it's a good opportunity to hear from our director as well, because the person that's been involved for years and sees the path forward possibly too. Loretta.
She's unmuted.
Okay.
It may be a volume thing on her part. Loretta, is your volume up? Let me take her out and put her back in and see if.
Okay. Yep, we'll do that, and we'll come back.
You know what I'm gonna do? Let me try this.
Okay.
Okay, so I've got her promoted to a panelist, so maybe if she unmutes, maybe that will help. Loretta, are you speaking?
She's got the mute.
Yeah, unmute Loretta.
Okay, so as
I'll work on this a minute if you want to keep.
Yeah, we'll continue if there's other questions or comments or further from administration. And Loretta, I know you can hear us, pretty sure. Just unmute if you can arrange that, and just to break in then. I'll see if there's other council comments right now.
Well,
and Vince, well, go ahead.
I'm just jotting some notes down until we get Loretta on there. Again, her and I had a good, really good conversation, I thought. Maintenance dealing with the maintenance facility consolidation. If you're okay with that, Loretta, and I can certainly continue to work in that regard. I don't know what the season holds based on the COVID pandemic. I just don't know. But I think we could start to, do some planning as well. I think Loretta can now, she's available. Yep.
She texted me. I think she is available.
Okay. I see that. Loretta?
Yeah, he was off the mute.
Yeah.
Well, let me carry forward with it. I think one of the things that Loretta and I talked about as well is taking a review. I did give you an attachment in the memo of the existing organized activities. We'll continue to take a look at that and see what makes sense and what may not make sense. We've had some discussion with utilizing, some of the personnel, obviously in the downtown area to focus a little bit more in that area. But, our park supervisors got certification for doing, herbicide application. And I know last year I was pretty upset with some of the growth that we had in different areas and tree grates and what have you. And so more focused in that area as well to address some of that. And then lastly is, we'll start working to put some structure together if we were to encourage other groups to organize and take on some of the activities and put the outline that I was talking about. So.
Thanks, Vince. Councilman Moore, before you start, I think this is not something that's going to be drastically happening here over the next month. This is a review and a process, because I don't want the thought to be, or the message community that we're just stopping things. I think we're evaluating to see how we move forward this year and what transitions might be available and how do we put plans in place. And as I always say, there's opportunities for the community to be a participant in these discussions. And as we start to form this, how we form our next commissioner committee, that in this broad sense that we're talking about. And Councilman Lamore, if you would.
Thank you, Your Honor. As far as guidelines for allowing players to participate, things like that, Michigan High School Athletic Association would be a great organization to follow their lead. They're knee deep in this. all year round. And they're looking for different ways to allow kids to participate as well as stay out there and be active. So a great organization to follow, and I think it's something maybe we should follow their lead a little bit in that.
Yeah, there may be some things that they've worked through in other communities that would be as a template or a thought process. I see Attorney Buds has his hand up, and I see Loretta might have changed over. So let's go to Mr. Buds and see if Loretta can join.
I was just going to say to Councilman Lamore's point, I know a lot of organizations knee deep in it, and I will say he's correct, MHSAA. I'll say for my own 2 cents to build on what I said before, involvement in, I'll say more leadership than I probably ever wanted in youth hockey. We are knee deep in it as well. And I'll say it's a struggle. I'll say unlike any I've really been involved in personally or professionally, the desire for I'll say parents and kids to be out there playing versus trying to comply with the Health and Human Services epidemic orders. It really has become a struggle. And I'm hopeful that we'll see, I'll say, continued plateau and decrease to numbers that then will allow us to have more activity this summer. But it's really.
I think we just lost. Oh,
Whoop,
there he is.
I'm there. Sorry.
No.
I was like, I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
The point, I think the point's taken, and I think that is also what we as a council and administratively have to recognize as well as we make items available for those that are going to participate, that some of that responsibility is still shared within the city as well. And that's, I think, the structure we put in to accommodate the good for all. Loretta, I know you kind of transitioned over. Are you there?
This is Loretta Lapoint. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Welcome.
I landed. I don't know what was going on. I had everything on my laptop up and unmuted, so the mystery of the laptop goes to bed. But well, this is Loretta Lapoint, Director of Parks and Rec, and I appreciate very much everything that you as a council are doing. Recreation does change and morph over time, and it definitely morphs and changes over decades. Park development, program planning, with the advent of phones and computers, things have taken a turn that, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, we never even dreamed. So as things are going on a more individual basis, we still have a couple of good programs, and I appreciate that you're making it clear that, people aren't to worry. There's nothing happening this year. We're still kind of assessing whether or not we're able to go forward confidently with keeping people safe during coronavirus. There are quite a few places to look for direction. Some of my concerns has been not that there's not direction given, but in being able to make sure that you can have all participants following that direction, who's overseeing it, and sometimes that is easier indoors when you have a full staff and you can limit people, but those are a lot of things to think about. I think that individualized sports have definitely dropped in numbers over the years. It's a trend, and there are times where as a culture we have to face addressing that as opposed to constantly trying to get people re-engaged in it. If the population is falling off, there's still good programs to have. As far as whether or not we go down a path like Mesa, I think is too far in the future to even think right now. I think our youth ball numbers are in the 350 range. By watching those closely in the near future, I think that possibly the ideas of even rentals or merging with another location, the more structure we have in getting contracts written and we're overseeing it, as you have still the same amount of staff time going into that. And I think that's one of the things from what I'm hearing that you're trying to reallocate. So I think we can watch and see how this is all going. I think that's very wise. I also think that, taking the steps of consolidating and kind of having it be a more robust one location thing is wise for the parks crew. They're not trailering tractors and maybe we wouldn't even be servicing those fields anymore. Then that reverts back to the school. So I'm excited that I think there just are different recreational opportunities organically coming out of the population, and we're smart to follow those paths. So does anyone have any questions for me?
Thank you, Loretta. That's for the review and thoughts. It's in relation to the council's comments, and as we collectively move forward. I'll see if there's any questions from council for Director Lapointe. I don't see any hands raised. I know that, there's Councilman Michelangelo, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Loretta, if we were to actually, the recommendation that was in the memo where you and Vince had suggested combining youth and adult program, ball programs at Munson. What's the lead time that you need to put in a ball field and have it established before it's ready to be played on? I mean, how much time are we talking about?
Vince and I were just talking about this yesterday, so I haven't had time yet to go in to do any research on it. But one of the things I'm going to do first is take the schedules of what we had, then see if we, block them off on just those fields. Are we able to put in all the games that we had last year onto those fields? And I think that probably one of the best things we could do would be to I would think by this summer, but again, I'd have to talk with Brad, that they could cordon off or stripe off some very simplistic T-ball fields for the little ones. Those would be the quickest to put in. We could maybe put them in the front next to the skate park by Airport Road. There's a full parking lot there. It's probably big enough for two, people don't hit into the outfield normally in T-ball. So I think they would fit there. I would hope we could do that. Again, I'm not sure what our summer schedule would be. The variant is very concerning to me, that it can pass quickly. And again, we don't have a league director at every single game because they're in different locations. Even at Munson, they would be in different locations. And so to make sure everyone's got a mask on, everyone's washing, everyone's 6 feet apart, these are pretty stringent guidelines. And I have been concerned. I have talked with a lot of people that told me last year that they did go into Ohio for ball games. Every single person I talked to told me the things weren't being implemented. There were no masks. They weren't 6 feet apart. No one was washing their hands. I know our concerns for the restrooms even were air circulation. If you have 80, 90 people using a restroom in a day and there's no fan, people go in, they may take a mask down. So as far as whether or not those ball diamonds would be ready for the summer, I would think he would be able to do something with the small T-balls. So once I block them off, once I talk to him, I'll have a better grasp.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Lamore.
Thank you, Your Honor. I can address some of those issues in the state of Michigan for sure. Underneath the MHSAA, as you know, I am a referee in the state, and I can tell you all the different locations I refereed at, masks were stringently adhered to. The policies were stringently adhered to. There were people on site to make sure that those things happen. I understand Loretta's concern regarding having somebody on site to make sure those things happen. But I can tell you through those guidelines that the MHSAA put forth, those things were carried out very well and stringently adhered to. And if they're not, that's when our policy comes into effect and we say, okay, you're done. You can't do this anymore because you're not, adhering to the guidelines. So I think it can happen. Like I said, we need guidance from another organization, and I think they're the perfect one to follow as far as that goes.
Other council thoughts? I see Mr. Pastu
It just, actually, we had an issue last fall with Mesa regarding soccer, and both Loretta and I agreed that we would use the Michigan High School Athletic Association guidelines. And there for a period of time in the early fall, they were, particularly in our zone, were no longer, they weren't allowed to play. And then once that was limited, we gave them, okay, follow the Michigan High School Athletic Association guidelines, and we'll let you move forward with it. So they are good guidelines. They're consistent, and I think that's probably what people are looking for sometimes in this process is a consistent application.
Very good. Yep. Are there questions or comments from council, or questions for Loretta? Loretta, I appreciate it. John, go ahead. Council Michelangelo.
Yeah, Mayor, thanks. Vince, what's your thought on what's your time frame, I guess, on how to roll this out if we reorganize Parks and Recreation into a kind of more broader context that that you were thinking about in the memo?
Well, I think it's, there's a lot of stages that we can put this together. I think part of it was just having a discussion. If you're okay with this direction, how do we go about implementing? I could see a few things. Again, following up on the question to Loretta, well, if we have a ball season this year, can we get everybody consolidated into one area? That being an item there. Certainly some of the maintenance related items that I talked about, as well as with the consolidation of facilities that can happen. And so I can put together a timetable of how we can implement, these in schedules. And then the other part of it is from a special event aspect. I kind of alluded there that Mark had, we had a meeting last year that he organized just at the end of, just before the pandemic, and some of the major donors and sponsors of events to talk about what was contained in the memo there, that how we can work together in a more organized manner. So that'll require a little more detail, but again, thinking some of the that there'll be a little time I can put something together. And then, as I said, Loretta and I will look through the schedule, what we have, how we can look at some of the programs and what have you. So there's some things I think we can do real quick. And then some that'll be a little more timetable. I'll take it back to the personnel committee and get feedback. How about that?
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Other comments, questions? Appreciate that, Vince, and Loretta, thank you for joining and providing some input and update. And as we move forward, I think that, as we said, we'll transition some things as we move forward, opportunities this year, and then look to the future. So I think there's going to be some continued discussion on this, because we as a council, in our goals and objectives, have said the importance about this in a variety of ways, which has already been mentioned. So look forward to the discussion, Vince, moving forward as you continue to bring it back to council. If we're concluded with this one, Vince, any other items for the meeting?
I just put anything else if council wanted to talk about.
Yep. So it's council's, I guess, if there's a question or comment for on these items or something in the future, just plant the seed is probably the time. If not, we can always forward that to Mr. Pastou to bring forward here at our next meeting just on Monday. So in a couple days. Councilor Michelangelo.
Yeah, Vince, just I know that you have two proposals out. One is for the Winchester Corridor Sub-Area Plan, and the other one is you had an RFP out for programming for the community center. Have those come in yet, or are they still outstanding?
They're scheduled to be received February 8th.
Oh, okay. So they're coming up pretty quick then.
Yes.
So the council will be looking at that, their second meeting in February?
No, I would anticipate, with each, we have individuals that are going to be involved, kind of like we've done with other subcommittees, review the proposals, possibly schedule some interviews with the consultants, and then present a recommendation. I'm thinking that it's probably going to come to council probably mid March.
Okay,
Was what I was thinking is when we can complete that process.
okay, thank you.
So Vince, along those lines, maybe for our council as well as those that may watch this later, but the bids on our street projects and that, and maybe a short update as well.
Those are, again, just went out, I think Patrick had them go out this last Thursday. And again, we're probably looking at, trying to remember the schedule, if it was going to be the March 1st or the March 15th meeting that council would be taking action on the concrete work with that. So I know that I'm thinking it's March 1st. And that's part of the reason for some of this is there's so much, we got a laundry list of things in the hopper here, and I'll lose track of some of the timing, but I do think it's either March 1st or March 15th. And the thought was, you get a decent spring, they're able to mobilize, they can get and go pretty quick. And we also get in front of a lot of the other contracts that are out there. So
I think we're opening those on the 22nd.
22nd? Yep.
I think we're, opening them, and that's the week before the first March meeting. So that's
okay, good. And that was probably, it's good to appreciate that. So March 1st, they'll be there.
Thanks, Vince. I mean, we have many projects, and I think this keeping the timeline aware for everybody, it helps with the council when there's calls from residents about the project or not. Councilman Michelangelo, follow?
Yeah, thanks, Your Honor. Vince, has anybody at the administration gotten any feedback relative to the letter that Patrick sent out regarding the proposed conversion of Cass and Harrison?
I think there was one letter that came in, I think it was directed to the mayor, and he responded to it. I think had to do more with the parking and the rental unit associated with it. Mayor, I'll let you talk.
Sure. Sure, there was, and I think also the clerk treasurer might have received one as well. It's not a volume that's come in, Councilman. The one I received was specific to the parking on Cass between 5th and 6th Street. Of course, I've been by there multiple times, as many of you have as well, and I went by again and again, and recognizing that it was interesting out of the on the east side of the street, the 4 dwellings account for 10 units of residency. And it's so that was the issue, and then of course they found the fact that the vehicles out front, which I know the Monroe Police is following up on, had either expired or no proper registrations, and they weren't providing parking within the garage that was on the property. So those are the I'll say the contributing factors to the dialogue and discussion that I'll be prepared to review on Monday if it's raised or asked. And that's just so it was the only block on Cass that has parking on both sides of the street. And I think from a long-term use and mobility and safety, it's probably it's going to be one or the other in my opinion. But we'll see what comes out. And that was specific to the parking on both sides of the street. Well, but it wasn't an overall response, so Councilman. Go ahead.
Yeah, the last time we had that conversation over a year ago, I drove that alley on the east side of Cass and noticed that several of the garages actually had padlocks, which kind of told me that the person that owns the property is using the garage for storage, not for parking. So yeah, you obviously saw the same thing. So
yeah, and I put that within my email response back that there's plenty of accessible parking, unless of course the tenants are permitted to use that, and then that it is an asset, but it needs to be utilized. So I think that's part of the conversation. I noticed, and I think it's worth if you haven't invited us to drive down through the street, but the alleyways as well. I see more people are using the back entrance accessibility. However, when you have trailers or company vehicles and other things, it's just to contribute. So the broad sense of the discussion that we have to have with everybody and make sure the residents have a place to get access to their properties, no question. Councilman Lamore?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, I think we've all received the email that was sent out, which is what you're talking about right now. But I think there are several more comments that have been brought out via social media, Facebook, etc., which obviously we have to be a little bit attentive to as well. So just those little things, just to sometimes the neighborhood, the people that live there don't have an opportunity to get on different ways of media. All I can tell them is to, if they feel like they're being, they need to get an expression out, then somehow get a hold of us. If you want to address it by bringing something down to City Hall, to however you want to get it forward, we need to hear from you. So, and I know people are putting it out there. Just we have to be attentive to it.
Yep. And of
Your
course,
Honor?
our clerk treasurer's office is involved with that. Is the
Yeah,
conduit
I
for
was
that,
gonna
Michelle?
I was gonna say, I have a 3-page letter that handwritten letter from a resident to read in Monday's meeting. So I'll probably go ahead and get a copy out of it to all of you in case it exceeds the time limit. That way you'll have, it might be a little hard to read because it's a good old fashioned handwritten letter, but I'll get all the pages out to you.
The email that I received was addressed to, I think Councilman Moore was copied on that, was the only one. I will forward that just for background to the council to see the property owners. They live in the city, but this isn't their residence. It's one of their rentals. And I will send it along so you can see what their item was, and then you can see the response that I sent. Councilman Jeremy.
There's also a lot of comment on the Minority News Facebook page. So if you all want to take a look at that, there's quite a few comments on Minority News as well.
Very good. I'll see if there's anything additional from the council members to ask of the manager at this point. If not, I think I appreciate everybody's time on a Saturday. I think we're going to have probably more of these, as listening to Mr. Pastu. And I think as he sends those, as he looks to our calendars, we talked about all the activities and decisions and discussions we have to have, that there'll be some additional. So I think these are very productive, and I appreciate everybody's time. Mr. Pastu, any final comments?
Nothing more, Your Honor. Thank you, though. Again, thank you to council, though, for letting us go through this morning. So
if there's no other comments, so we just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion from Councilman Moore, supported by Councilwoman Whitman, to adjourn. Again, thank you all. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Whitman,
Yes.
Michael Angeli,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Germaini,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Felder,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes, thank you again. Thank you, Vince and Clerk Treasurer. And we'll see everybody Monday for sure. Have a great rest of the weekend.
Thank you.